When I was little, I grew up a little more on the poorer side. So for entertainment, me and my siblings would fish out one of those shitty $1 DVDs you would find at your nearest Walmart. And I don't know if it was me or one of my siblings, but what caught our eye was the movie Daddy I'm a Zombie. Daddy I'm a Zombie is a Spanish film directed by Ricardo Ramon John Espianch and was written by Daniel Torres. That got a sequel that I'm pretty sure did better than the first movie. Pause. Haha, I was wrong about that. So it turns out they both did like super bad. Let's see, name calling, chicken liver, bloodsucker, moron, rotten hatchet head, putrid ball of flesh, crackpot, bloodsucker, also shut your trap. And there's so much more of like parents just absolutely complaining about this movie. So I definitely think this movie wasn't really made so for kids as it was marketed towards kids. I mean, this one is actually pretty good. Wizard of Oz meets emo? Spooky here, and I decided to take a look at one of my favorite childhood films that I haven't visited since I was a kid, and I want to see how well they'd hold up now, and to, perhaps to revisit a old childhood crush, Goner, and I know I'm not the only one, let's be honest. With that, let's get right into the first movie. We start off with a zoom into the house to hear Dixie's parents fighting. Dixie wakes up and screams the wrong movie title as her mom leaves. Then we see the absolute freak that is Dixie's dad, like, Jesus, look at this dude. Thing is, he runs a funeral home, which is why his wife left him, and shit, I would have too. The thing is, is that the funeral home is literally inside their house. Dixie's dad wakes her up, who is the definition of emo. Her dad gives her 2 tickets to the fair, and then reminds her that she has to go to her mother's. We meet Julia, who is, well, Dixie's old friend, and then we get introduced to Dixie's crush, Ray, which prompts 2 girls to bully her. She fucking punches the shit out of the other girl, and of course gets her in trouble. When her dad gets upset at this, Dixie runs to her room to cry to music, which is like the realest thing she's ever done in this movie. To cheer her up, her dad tells her that he'll go to the fair with her because Julia said no. We zoom in on the most depressing fair and her dad being sickly optimistic, which, to be fair, when is he not? I mean, you get it because fair. Anyway, the bullies come back and apologize, and they invite her to go with them in the fun house with friends and Ray, the boy she liked earlier. Her dad, of course, says they can go and have fun, which is not what she had when the girls dragged her to reveal, drumroll please, Ray and Julia were together. I swear that was the biggest plot twist to me as a kid, which makes Dixie run off crying. She then confronted her dad that the reason she was bullied was because of him. Dixie runs in the forest, and like the freaky but good dad he is, he chases after her. Like Destiny, once Dixie says that she wishes she was dead, a tree falls on her. Dixie wakes up in a coffin, and upon leaving is met with a cemetery, which she immediately blames one of the bullies from later as one of her jokes. The denial ended short when she saw her tombstone in a cloaked person ringing the bell. Dixie does her signature move by running away, cloaked person chasing after her, telling her not to leave. She's met with, I don't know, weird wolf creatures, and is understandably terrified. The cloaked figure tells her to run, which surprisingly takes her a second. Like, I don't know, at this point, she can be an athlete. These wolf things chase after her, but as soon as she's back into the cemetery, it's revealed that the wolf creatures can't go past the entrance. The cloaked figure explains that these are dark angels and that they're incapable of entering holy graveyards. Dixie asks what they want, and the figure also explains they capture zombies who've wandered away from their cemeteries and turn them over to Nebulosa, a dark soul. Dixie, still in denial, claims that zombies aren't real. It's impossible. The cloaked figure then reveals themselves as Isis. Dixie freaks out again, and Isis brings up that she hasn't bathed because water destroys zombies, not expecting Dixie to know that because she's new. Isis says that that it's all the same with fire and sunlight, and that Dixie would get used to it. Dixie, after this info dump, finally realizes that she is in fact a zombie. Dixie asks if there are any other zombies here, and Isis says that they've been taken by Nebulosa's dark angels. Well, yes, they couldn't get into the cemetery, food became scarce, and zombies migrated to other cemeteries. After Nebulosa found out their plan, she ambushed them. Only Isis and someone named Perushka managed to escape. But Perushka was reckless and started dating a boy from another cemetery, so she didn't see her as much. Isis wanted to be friends, but Dixie refused her request and slapped her food or her invitation. Isis said it was a good thing it wasn't milk, or she'd have 7 days of bad luck. She's superstitious, and it gets bring up a lot in the movie. I don't know why Dixie was a dickhead. I would have been friends with you, Isis. I love her. Dixie says she is going home, but Isis reminds her that she is a zombie. Before she can explain to Dixie how she can go back to being mortal, she's interrupted by someone saying the Azoth. It's revealed that it's Perushka and the person Isis was talking about earlier. Perushka explains the legend of the Azoth, a novice or a newly arrived zombie, who used the magical powers of the Azoth to create a passage back. A magical passage that will allow zombies to return to their mortal lives back to the exact moment before their death, so they can fix the mistakes they made when they were alive. Since Dixie is a novice, they ask if she has the Azoth, which of course she does, she's the main character. Dixie says that it isn't because it's just a pendant she got for her birthday, which Perushka tries to take. Isis says that vitriol could help them since he knew so much about the dead and the living. Perushka says that no one knows where he lives and the forest is invested with dark angels and mortals. She would have to take it to him because no one gets around better than her. Dixie tells her no, but Perushka tries to go and grab it. I don't know why, but I find this scene so silly. Go, Dixie! Perushka walks away, and the scene switches over to our antagonist, which isn't all that interesting. I think Nebulosa just has a thing for plants. Also, we found out that she wants to capture every zombie in the whole region, and they're looking for the Azoth. Dixie goes out to look for the vitriol dude, and Isis begs to come along. She says she knows where he is, and Dixie breaks, telling Isis she is not her friend though. We see Nebulosa again, and it gets revealed that Perushka was a spy, not really shocking. So of course now Nebulosa is after Dixie. Dixie appears upon just saying her name, and she hasn't eaten in days. This causes her to be distracted by berries and leaves Isis going ahead. We see the dark angels again, and Dixie runs. Isis pulls Dixie up by her wraps and saves her from the dark angels. The scene is kind of... They have a little bonding time as Isis explains how she died and how she's cursed. Dixie asks Isis what they were exactly, and Isis explains that they're zombies because they had unfinished business, and that only the Azoth could open the portal back home so they can fix their mistakes. Then we get the cutest scene ever. I think they're so cute. They find a place to hide, but then a goofy pumpkin scarecrow or whatever interrupts that and blows fire out of his arm. They find a place to hide again, but climb out a window, to which Dixie hits the dude in the back of the head with a shovel. Okay, this is the second realist thing she's done. She takes off the pumpkin and it's gone! Yeah, it wasn't just me that had a thing for this fucker when I was a kid. They tie him up and interrogate him. He says that this is the place he hides from the dark angels and that he only tried to attack them because he thought Nebulosa sent them. He introduces himself as Goner, and of fucking course Dixie shows interest in him. I don't blame her though. I do blame her. Isis doesn't want Goner to go with them, but Dixie insists because he looks like a kicked puppy. Dixie tells him they're looking for a vitriol, and Goner says he can help them in less than 2 days. Goner takes them to his boat, the fair siren, and Isis is reasonably scared because zombies can die from water. Dixie asked about Goner, and it's revealed he is in fact parentless and he grew up on the streets. But then he got picked up by pirates. Goner asks Dixie if she wants to learn to sail, and we finally see their relationship develop. Woohoo! We get to see more as Isis goes to sleep. Dixie reveals the Azoth and vents about her life in the meantime and delivers this corny-ass line. And you have me. And of course they kiss. Isis and Dixie have a little argument, and then when they try to go to wake up Goner, they realize he's not there. Same with the Azoth. When they tried to go somewhere, it's also shown that Isis also has no clue where to go, which prompts Dixie to leave. But then Dixie falls off a cliff and she's dismembered. Isis finds Goner and confronts him by throwing rocks at him. I love her so much. Gunnar runs and Isis chases, still throwing rocks at him while climbing up a little cliffside. Gunnar says he's trying to save Dixie and pulls Isis to where he was, and she hides as Dark Angels come in the room. He shows the Dark Angel he has the Azoth and says the novice had gotten away. 2 new Dark Angels were sent to go look for Dixie, but Isis poses as Dixie so that they wouldn't go looking for her. Gunnar shows up to Nebulosa's, I don't fucking know, cave, and plot twist, the boy that Perushka was said to be dating at the start is Gunnar, but Gunnar seems to care less. Gunnar and Perushka give Nebulosa the Azoth. We get to see Isis being taken away by a box, and there was just a guy watching too. Same guy who stumbles upon a dismembered Dixie, what a coincidence, fixes her up, and it's revealed to be the guy they've been looking for, Vitriol. In the meantime, Nebulosis opened the portal back to mortality, nice, and even though it's supposed to be the novice who opens up the portal, Nebulosa managed to do it instead. Wonder what shenanigans that will bring, and all the zombies that she has captured to go into the portal. After some hesitation, Vitriol agrees to take Dixie to Nebulosa. Some Dark Angels carry Isis, or what they think is Dixie, to another room in a box, and Gunnar follows after wanting to rescue Dixie. He knocks out the 2 Dark Angels, but before he can get Dixie, or as we know Isis, he's interrupted by Perushka. She then tries to kill Gunnar, and then the actual Dixie stumbles upon this and just fucking watches. She just kind of insults Gunnar until she realized that he was trying to save her, in which Gunnar delivers just the best line.
Really want to know? Jolly Roger, she's hot. I love every inch of her maggot-ridden body. Aye, she's me own buxom beauty.
Dixie stops Perushka from killing Gunnar and ends up killing her with water instead. Like, why would you have water nearby if it kills you? And then Dixie then slaps Gunnar and then kisses him. Wow. Aw, wow. Dixie grabs the Azoth and goes to find Isis, as she should. Gunnar finally realizes that the person in the box was Isis, not Dixie. Nebulosa, surprise, surprise, gets to Isis first and threatens to kill her if Dixie doesn't hand over the Azoth. Dixie hands over the Azoth, and while not letting go, she tells Isis to run. The sunlight comes, and the Azoth, I guess, activates. It opens a portal which Gunnar and Isis jump into. Then, Dixie wakes up back in the forest where she died, and has a nice little moment with her dad. Dixie has her end dialogue with the message of the story, and, it's just the end. Hooray. We also learn that Isis and Gunnar had their little happy ending too, which is sweet. Also, not gonna lie, I found the end credit drawings really fucking cool. I mean, look at these silly billies. They didn't do anything wrong. It's a pretty damn good movie. Sure, the quality could definitely be better and I got lost through a lot of it, but it was overall really enjoyable. The characters were unique, the narrative was definitely unique, and the art style and look of all of it was just really cool. And each time I watched it, I just found it more and more charming. I definitely have some criticisms, and there was definitely some plot holes, like how Gunnar helped Dixie by giving her the Azoth that is directly doing the opposite no matter the intent. Also, that we didn't get to see more of the shit with Dixie and Isis, because I have issues, but this is all just my opinion after all. Without the childhood nostalgia, I'd give the movie a solid 8 out of 10. I think I definitely enjoyed Isis more than everyone else, and I kind of have a love-hate relationship with Dixie. Gunnar still holds true to my memories, and I honestly felt kind of bad for Perushka, even though she was technically evil. Like, Gunnar did do her a little dirty, you gotta admit. But there was a lot of character dialogue and moments that I did leave out for the sake of how long this video will be, so I still suggest that you go and watch it for yourself. If it interested you so far, hell, pause my video and watch it later after you're done with the second one so you don't get spoilers. If you're not, then you're just gonna still join the ride. Now it's time to get into the second and last movie of the I'm a Zombie short series. I'm sure this won't get any more confusing or start to spiral. So we we are back and we are immediately hit with the recap that we're gonna skip because I explain it better. In the next movie, things are a lot brighter visually, which kind of upsets me even if it's in better quality. And instead of starting on Dixie, we start off on a group of boys from her school. We don't get the names of them, but they're recording as they walk into a cemetery. And there's a gingered emo, bowl cut emo, and the stereotypical fat kid that they of course use as the butt of the joke whenever he's around. They look for ghosts and are in luck or unluck as the ghost of Perushka shows up along with some dark angels. We follow Dixie now as her life has turned upside down and it looks like she's on good terms with her dad and she's popular. We also see that she even looks a little more lively. The bullies show up again and pretend to apologize again, and Dixie still just doesn't tell them to fuck off. They talk a little bit and the bullies shower her with compliments even though she's wearing the exact same thing, only difference is her hair. And then Dixie's mom comes and picks her up, which she is also now on good terms with. Her mom suggests that she should run for school president, and Dixie agrees, and they plan to have a party for Halloween at her mom's since, as we know, her dad's place is icky, which she tells the bullies of all people, and as we know, that doesn't go well. The bullies say they want to help and tell Dixie that she can only invite popular people. Looking over at the group of nerds or the boys at the start, Dixie finds out that Perushka is back. Dixie goes home and tells her dad that she's having her Halloween party at her mom's, and her dad is, as always, upset. You're a grown-ass man. Be supportive. Dixie, in the middle of the night, has some pain. I don't know, it's not really explained. She goes to the hospital. She had an appendix, apparently, which I don't know why that's important to the story, and we just completely move on. Getting home, Dixie goes to touch up one of the corpses to reveal it's Isis. Also, Goner is there too. Before they can explain, Dixie's dad knocks on the door because she screamed, and they go somewhere else to talk. So what happened is that Perushka is saying that Nebulosa is back, which doesn't really explain why they're back, because in the last movie they did go on to live their lives, but you know, whatever. And it's up to Dixie because she's the carrier of the Azoth to stop Nebulosa. But the Azoth isn't glowing, and so they assumed it lost all its power. Barushka goes back to Nebulosa and somehow manages to get her hands on the essence of Azoth when Dixie was asleep, which is probably explains why it wasn't glowing. We switch back over to the sillies, I mean the gang, and they're walking in the forest, in which we get the infamous Goner scene. Besides that, they are back again looking for Vitriol. Vitriol? I don't know how to say it. Once they find him, Vitriol confirms that the Azoth has lost its essence and explains that it's made of the 4 basic elements: earth, fire, water, and air. By getting that's how they get back its essence. Vitriol gives them the first element, which is the earth element. Dixie is very obviously tired, and we have the girls fighting whose tomb she'll sleep in.
Want to sleep in my tomb, Dixie?
Who'd want to sleep in that dirty hole in the ground? Come to my super roomy tomb instead, Dixie.
Forgetting that she's no longer a zombie. Also, the group of nerds catches Dixie leaving the cemetery. Wowza. But anyways, school shit, drama with the bullies, and then Goner and Isis waiting for Dixie in a bush on her way home. Dixie freaks out because they're in a public place, but Goner assures them they weren't seen. They're back walking in the forest, and Goner talks with Dixie about their relationship, which, this movie really pushes. Isis accidentally bumps into Dixie, and she raises the Azoth to the moon, which reveals a map where they can find the air element. They see a lighthouse in the distance and go towards it. Picking the lock, they climb to the top of the lighthouse, where there at the top, since the light is going, Isis reminds Dixie that they can't go in it, which I'm pretty certain last movie was just daylight they couldn't go in. I could be wrong, whatever. So Dixie climbs to the very top with the ladder and grabs the air element after a bit of a shenanigans, and it turns out the fucking air elemental is a fairy. The world building thickens, I guess, and it rightfully stabs Dixie with its horn when she just grabs at the poor thing. The fairy releases bats, and Goner risks his life to help Dixie. Dixie finally gets the fairy, and they all end up having to hide because of some old lady who climbs up the ladder for her cat. They bring the fairy that turned into an egg to Vitriol, who gives them a little bit more information on it, and we see the nerds again scene as they see Dixie coming out of the cemetery again. We see Goner and Isis again, as per usual, fighting over Dixie, and we also get to see them spying on Barushka as she tells some skeletons that Nebulosa has changed for the better and invites them to her lair. Dixie gets caught up in school drama with Julia, her old friend, her now I'm guessing old friend, who thinks she told Ray she kissed some other guy. And let me just say, the people in the background of the scene are the funniest shit because they are just horrible. Also, where's the teacher? We never see any kind of an adult figure at the school. Besides that, Dixie gets home and just wants to sleep. But as always, Isis and Goner show up in her room magically. After almost getting caught by her dad, they're back in the forest looking for the fire elemental, learning that it's actually in their graveyard. The problem with that being that the group of nerds are always hanging around. They hide as the group of nerds use a fucking cat as bait. Isis holds Goner back as Dixie gets the idea to howl and pretend to be a wolf to scare the nerds off. Not long after they find the fire element, I don't feel like explaining how, just know they did. Yet another fair happens, only for a moment for the scene as Dixie's mother gives her bad advice. Then we see Parushka tell Nebulosa the wonderful news that zombies from different types of cemeteries are coming to hear her message, as well as Dixie and her search for the 4 elements of creation. Dixie goes back home to hopefully sleep, but instead she gets a surprise kiss from Goner, which she is repulsed with. We see more into Goner and Dixie's relationship and how Goner being a zombie and Dixie immortal affects it. Goner walks off and back to the cemetery, and Barushka shows up saying she'll be waiting for him since Dixie is obviously disinterested. Goner also falls for the group of nerds trap. Goner manages to bite the bowl cut emo. It's a total side plot before they trap him inside a box. Next day at school, Dixie apologizes to Ray about the whole Julia thing, and Ray is just a fucking douchebag. Then the nerds interrupt the class, which again has no fucking teacher, to announce they captured a zombie and to come see it. They don't actually show Goner to everyone, but they do expose Dixie has been covering up for him, and she then absolutely disrespects this man while Goner is still there and crawls into Ray's arms. Love-hate relationship with her, I'm telling you. Dixie later that night tries to break Goner out, but turns out he already left, returning to guess who? You guessed it, Nebulosa and her squad, and rats them out in order to save his life since he did betray them last time. Isis tries to get Dixie to go get the last element, but of course, Dixie doesn't do shit, and Isis does all the work. Then Barushka shows up and kills my baby girl. And spoiler, she doesn't come back. They just kill her. We don't see her go. I'm so mad about this. I'm so mad. It's the stupidest fucking shit ever. Anyways, it comes the time where Nebulosa reveals that she has the Azoth, or at least the essence of it, and all these zombies, which they're literally just skeletons, now bow down to her. Nebulosa then opens a portal to rain terror on mortals, and the army follows. Dixie realizes that Isis is dead and finds the water elemental, or the last elemental that Isis had retrieved. She goes to Vitrol, who helps her get the essence of the Azoth. Then they make their way to the fair, where the nerds defend everyone from the undead for like 3 minutes. Also, I want to point out that they literally just copy and pasted the crowd, so there are multiple of the same characters in the crowd, and they're all just doing the same cheering motion. This movie is for real so goofy. Dixie confronts the crowd of undead, Nebulosa, and all the humans as the true barrier of the Azoth, and she's able to turn herself into a zombie to get their trust. Nebulosa knocks the shit out of Dixie, and the undead decides to get her ass as she hurt the barrier of the Azoth. Dixie wakes up back at the hospital and doesn't even seem phased, even after all that happened, and says she's throwing the party at her dad's instead. The party is thrown, and that's it. That's pretty much the story. The only mention of Goner and Isis after that is just like wind blowing. Plot holes? Absolutely. Criticism? It deserves it. Enjoyability? Yeah, I would say the movie went pretty hard. For a movie that was made in the early 2010s, it held my attention throughout the entire thing, even if a lot of it just didn't make sense and there was so much going on. It's a kids movie after all, and definitely up to quality of today's movies. The characters, specifically Isis and Goner, held my attention whenever they were on screen. For real, kicking my feet, and I think it's so dumb they killed off the best character. If I'm being honest, Goner was also eye candy though, and I more see him as a silly character than a twirling my hair character, if you know what I mean. Dixie, I still have a hard love-hate relationship though. She does make some stupid decisions that can be easily walked around, but she's just so dumb. Liked her more as a zombie, if I'm being honest. Her using Goner as a little side thing was a little wonky, and I'm glad the movie explored that a little bit. Since my friend hadn't watched the first movie and hasn't watched the second in ages, I decided to watch it with them, and they pointed out that it is a little queer-coded. In my opinion, the movie gets a 7 out of 10. The only reason I had really enjoyed this one was the more scenes with Isis, and Goner, but the first one just makes more sense to me and feels a lot less crowded. Even then, it's a very charming movie, and I highly recommend you go watch it for yourself. I even took the time to look at fan content, and well, a lot of it is just Goner, which is understandable. From what I gathered, everyone had a thing for that dude, but there's still a really cool amount of fan art and fan works of them all, including many edits. Anyways, this is where I'm going to be ending the video. Thank you so much for watching, and I really do hope you enjoyed it. If you did, then please consider subscribing to see what other wacky things I get up to in the future. I've been Spooky here, and remember, Goner is canonically 14 to 15 years old.
Sun through the window, glass on the pane. I've been passing time just